We live in complicated, overstimulated times. Algorithms fight for your attention. Data gets sold to the highest bidder. Streaming platforms create your experience to stay on any given platform for longer. Targeted ads hit you with a product before you've even figured out that you need it. Sometimes, even eating food can be a minefield.
Eric and I were planning on ordering food. Would you want to get in on that?
Before, deciding which takeout to order could spark a lengthy debate about exactly where you'd order it from.
Guess who just ordered from your favorite pizza place, Alfredo?
Alfredo's Pizza Cafe? Or Pizza by Alfredo?
Same thing.
No.
Now, specifically what food you order, what the ingredients are, and the threat of how they're systematically destroying your gut biome lurks around every corner of the internet.
I never recommend eating oatmeal.
I don't blend fruits because you'll quadruple the glycemic profile.
What's your thoughts on milk?
It's problematic. Current dairy is not something we should consume.
About 5 years ago, I found myself randomly watching Cooked on Netflix. I think it was before the pandemic or somewhere around that time. It predates the time that we started saying we're cooked, basically. It was one of those several cooking shows that Netflix produced. Salt, acid, fat, heat, ugly delicious, chef's table, street food, Asia. Somebody feed Phil, for goodness sake. I think I ended up watching one episode of Cooked, and it was the air episode, which went into detail about how air is a secret ingredient for a lot of foods. The only thing I remember about that episode was this guy called Michael Pollan? Michael Pollan. I'm gonna have to double check that. And specifically how he would say the word bread.
Think of the loaf of bread. When I thought about baking bread, bread requires a civilization.
Bread is hugely important to many cultures. Bread spread quickly.
So when we discovered bread, we're all connected by this price of bread.
This man must have said bread 100 times in the space of 50 minutes. Like it was a sacred word. And the more he said it, the more it started to sound important. Almost spiritual. Maybe even deified? Nah, not deified. But anyway, it was just this really lovely piece about the origins of bread, how simple bread is, and how bread represents this moment in anthropology where bread only exists because we do. Humans, that is, the human race. But bread has existed for almost as long as the human race has, and it's a type of food that crosses over cultures throughout time and space itself. And not only that, but bread is really, really tasty.
I'll have what she's having.
I don't think there's anyone in the world that would say they don't like bread. Even people that are gluten intolerant like bread. That's a fact. You can actually buy it from supermarkets as well, where they literally stack it on top of each other from floor to ceiling.
Oh, that was easy to find, wasn't it?
Depending on where you get it, some of it can be really cheap. Some of it can be quite suspiciously expensive, but hey, things are these days. Some of it's really simple, and some of it has loads of ingredients in it, either to make it last longer or in some way more nutritionally dense.
If you do eat white bread, make sure it's enriched. Enriched bread has vitamins added to it.
Wonder helps build strong bodies 12 ways.
Sammy says if you want to help build a strong body 8 ways, eat Wonder Bread.
But maybe this has got something to do with the industrialization of food or something. I'm sure there's a book about it somewhere. I've not read it, but I think I want to.
Boys, are you sure I can't make you a sandwich?
Oh, go away, Mum. Explorers don't eat sandwiches.
Of course not, sorry.
Some of it comes sliced. Some of it comes in little balls. Some of it comes in even thinner circular slices, and some of it comes in really long baton-shaped things. Some of them look like donuts. Some of them are even somehow knotted together. And some of them are rolled up with sweeter ingredients and then put into a little swirl kind of thing. But if you line them all up and tasted them side by side, they'd have different flavors, different textures, different smells, and they can be used for different purposes and even different cuisines. Take the humble tortilla wrap, for example. This is perfect for Mexican food like burritos or enchiladas or something. Think, El Paso. It can hold rice, protein, veg, sauce, all sorts. But would you put peanut butter and jelly in it? Or jam, depending on where you're from? Probably not. But you could. And that's the thing. Bread exists in every timeline, every culture. every corner of the world. It transcends time, class, even race. And I'm sure if you trace the rich tapestry of bread, in it you'll also find humanity. Human stories, human struggles, and human achievements. I mean, Jesus, you know, the thing with the bread and the fish. It's a pretty big deal. That was huge for bread. That was a huge moment for bread. In a world of chaos, though, bread is simplicity. Bread is comfort. Bread is familiarity. Flour, water, maybe yeast. That's all it needs. Anyway, where am I going with this? So, like every young adult in their mid-20s and in the middle of a global catastrophe like the pandemic, I, of course, got into baking bread. Obviously, baking content just exploded on YouTube and social media at the time. It's how I found people like Joshua Weissman, Brian Lagerstrom. I should just see how these people say their own names. Baking with Babish. The list goes on. It was literally all over my social media feeds. I literally couldn't move without seeing a sourdough loaf someone else had baked. Bread became maybe the worst thing of all. It became a meme. I did banana breads, I tried my hand at sourdough, I made sourdough starters, I made brioche buns, naan bread, cinnamon swirls, and eventually I found my way into making focaccias, which I make a lot of now, and I'll link the recipe at the end for you. During lockdown though, I remember it was impossible to get your hands on some yeast in particular. And my mum even sent me some in the post so I could continue my baking journey. It's like she smuggled gold dust to me, basically. I think around this time I also read two really informative books, The Man Who Made Things Out of Trees by Richard Penn, and How to Change Your Mind by none other than bread man himself, Michael Pollan. He's also written other books about your brain and other natural chemicals like caffeine and whatnot, but this book in particular was about taking psychedelics, for example. Anyway, this Robert Penn guy wrote this book about the history of baking bread, which had a lot of alignment with some of the stuff Michael Pollan was spitting on that Netflix show, Cooked, not How to Change Your Mind. Although, I'll hold my hands up, I haven't read it, but that's just the gist I get, because the one about trees was all about the history of the tree industry and, you know, the ins and outs of trees and the biology of trees and how humans use trees for industry and so on. It was really interesting. And I don't know, it just made for this really interesting crossover between the two writers and how they're both invested into this idea of humans cohabitating with nature, both being dependent in some way on the other, each having secrets about themselves that the other doesn't know, and there being a lot of inexplicable elements of nature that we just have to accept. Like, what do you mean this plant in the middle of some Amazonian forest can alter my brain chemistry? What do you mean if I put this ingredient and water together with heat, I get bread? Like, those things shouldn't happen, but they do because we're here and that's how we engage with nature. But anyway, this is where it kind of all dawned upon me. Very quickly, and without even realizing, bread, the simplest food on earth, started just getting complicated again. My feed was full of perfect crumb shots, long fermentation hacks, hydration percentages. People were like linking spreadsheets and PDFs on how to get the best loaf of bread. I was buying recipe books, I was watching videos, I was doing all sorts. Everyone had an opinion on the right way to score a loaf or the most optimized proofing technique. You know, the materials and the equipment you needed to get the best loaf of bread, the type of oven you needed.
All this for a loaf of bread?
We took this ancient 3-ingredient miracle and we just gave it over to the algorithm. Another thing to optimize, another thing to compare yourself to. At times, I made loaves of focaccia and people told me I could monetize it. Ever thought about starting a focaccia business? You know, people could pay real good money for this. You know, set up an Instagram account, set up a TikTok. Why are you TikToking it, bro? But looking back, I think I just needed something quiet, something small, something easy. Bread became my ritual. You mix the ingredients together, you wait, you fold, you wait again. It's not fast, it's not efficient, but it's very grounding. And you know, everything else in life at that time felt really unstable. Bread made sense. We didn't know when the lockdown would lift, but I knew when my bread would be ready to bake. We keep inventing ways to be faster, more connected, more productive, but none of it really feels human. It's all frictionless. Bread takes time, it takes touch, it takes patience. It's a rebellion against the algorithmic life we've built for ourselves. You know, you can make loads of TikToks, you can make YouTube videos, Instagram posts, whatever, but nothing beats that feeling of sinking hours into a loaf of bread, and delivering it to a friend, seeing the look on their face when you hand over the loaf when you make it into their flat. Sometimes bread isn't about making content. It's just about making lunch.